Hello and welcome along to episode 4 of Bump and Ride, where I promised to share my journey of cycling through pregnancy for as long as I possibly could. And this episode is going to be much more vlog style from me personally, because I've sort of closed the door on the camera cruise now, so to speak. I'm counting down the weeks and maybe days till I go into labour. So yeah, here's a little bit of a behind the scenes view. These baby on board workouts from Zwift are fantastic because plenty of rest in between. You start a nice, easy, gentle warm up. Started today at like 40 watts perhaps, and there's loads of rest in between intervals. It just gives you that peace of mind, really, that you're doing everything right and that you're not going to overheat or overdo it. This is a definite case of Zwift avatar versus reality, because my stomach is not really looking like that at the moment. Well, I'm so close, as you can see, to the end now, and the road.cc crew have left me to it, along with my partner Paul, who is filming today. And I'm amazed actually that I'm in shorts and a jersey so early in the year, but I'm also amazed that I've managed to get outside today, because I've been mostly on the turbo trainer. You can probably see the stack height has gone up as far as it possibly can, and it's actually still really comfy. I've got front suspension switched on, there's some rear suspension in the back of the lefty, and it's kept me really, really comfortable. But it just goes to show I had no idea how far I'd be able to ride in this journey, and I'm still going. And so I'm just so glad for every day that I can get out and enjoy this kind of weather. Just back in from a beautiful ride. You'll probably see behind me I've got a Rocket espresso machine. I'm hoping in weeks to come I'll be putting that to better use with caffeine again. I miss my buckets of caffeine. Anyway, I'm going to get the Lycra off and run through my top tips. Tip number 1, I think, is the biggest thing I wish I'd known at the start of my pregnancy in trimester 1. And that's actually that a lot of people will say, listen to your body, but that's a very difficult thing when you're in the early weeks of pregnancy, I found, because everybody will have completely different symptoms holding them back. Before I really hit the sickness phase, I was able to get on the bike. I was able to do interval sessions, for example. I was able to go out and do hills and normal rides. And I think people kept saying, oh, but your body will tell you what to do. But actually I felt completely normal. And I think for me, as the pregnancy's gone on and the bumps got bigger, now if I sit on the turbo for too long, well, it's bloody uncomfortable. But in the first trimester, it wasn't. And I could do pretty much what I'd been doing before. So a lot of people said, continue doing what you do. You don't have to do anything different. If you're at this level of fitness on the bike, continue, do your thing. But then I started reading quite scaremongering literature, a lot of it online, of course, that said, you mustn't go too hard, you mustn't go to max heart rate, you mustn't overheat on the bike. So obviously I endeavoured to get some really solid advice, and I'm really, really grateful to everyone along the way that's answered all these questions for me, and hopefully in turn that will help people in the future who find that they're pregnant and want to keep exercising, or specifically cycling.
The Canadian exercise guidance suggests there's certain conditions that women shouldn't exercise. They call them absolute contraindications to exercise. Things like where you've had a rupture of your membranes, premature labour, unexplained vaginal bleeding, that type of thing, where you've other medical problems associated with it. So preeclampsia with high blood pressure, problems with your cervix, that type of thing. Other than that, there's a few other things that women have, sort of what we call relative contraindications. In other words, you can do something, but it's a discussion with your GP, your midwife, your obstetrician, things like anemia, recurrent pregnancy loss, high blood pressure in pregnancy. They're the type of things that a discussion with a consultant obstetrician would be able to tell a woman. But other than that, there's very, very few things that should stop you exercising whilst in pregnancy. And I think that certainly the benefits of exercise as a whole across all of pregnancy outweigh the risks involved with exercise down the line, because that's the one area that I can look back to when I worked in obstetrics and labour wards, is that women with high BMIs, with all these sort of metabolic problems, blood pressure or diabetes, they're the ones that did badly. Have a poor outcomes or poorer outcomes than healthy women. So I think exercise, if it was put as controlled safely and following the safe guidelines, is very, very good for pregnancy. Always advocate it.
The biggest thing I learned, that if in doubt, rein it back. That's not the time where you have to prove anything in training. People are going to tell you in the first trimester, oh, make sure your nutrition's on point and make sure you're getting your 5 fruit and veg a day. But I felt like all I could do was combat feeling sick or being sick the whole time. So for me, an easy way of getting my fruit and veg in is quite often just chucking the blender on and having a smoothie in the morning. But oh my goodness, I had that on an empty stomach once or twice, and did I learn the hard way. So I think, especially when you're out riding a bike, you got to get down the hatch what you can and plan for the fact that you're going to need to snack all the time. Everyone's different again, but I just found that if I wasn't eating, I had this pure panic of perhaps throwing up, as lovely as that is for you to sharing that with me. But I think I often used to head out for a bike ride and think, oh, I won't have breakfast, I'll just grab a coffee at some point, that'll be fine. But actually, I needed to know there was a cafe that was open, so I was checking to make sure they were and what their opening hours were, because I didn't want to get halfway on a bike ride and think, uh-oh, I have no way of eating. And I just shoved snacks in every pocket possible. Number 3, I think, would be the fact that it's been so lovely to share anecdotes and share journeys with other people, but ultimately your pregnancy is yours. It's your own story. And I think that everybody's so different. So I was sort of sailing along with certain elements and people were saying, oh God, you just look like you're breezing through. And in certain ways I was, but actually then I ended up having pelvic girdle pain, which meant that one day I literally couldn't stand up, I couldn't get out of bed and I couldn't walk, and I was put onto crutches. And I found through, again, listening to the experts, that I could try and cycle. And as you can see, I've continued to cycle through the whole pregnancy. So I think it's very easy for other people to say, oh, I had that and it was absolutely terrible, or I had that and it was fine, I didn't have any problems. Don't worry about it too much. And that can maybe undermine sometimes how serious you feel something is. So I would say definitely listen to yourself. If you're in pain and something's not working for you, it doesn't matter what somebody else says their journey's been like. You need to do what works for you. I can't say enough how different my pregnancy's been from what my expectations maybe were. I thought I was going to get a massive bump overnight in trimester 1 and not be able to do anything and just have to sit around. But luckily for me, that wasn't the case, and I've kept going. And I'm in the final weeks now, and I'm still on the turbo. But I think it's just worth saying again that each bump size is so different. Some people grow very quickly, some people sit high or low, all these myths that people like to share with you. So you might find that the position you can adopt on the bike is completely different to mine. I've somehow still got my hoods in the same position and I haven't flipped my handlebars upside down, which has really, really surprised me that I haven't had to do that. But I have flipped my stem, I have increased my stem height and the stack height and the spaces that I've needed on various bike setups, be that gravel and the turbo. So I've definitely heightened mine, but definitely not as much as I thought I'd probably have to. But the thing again to remember is, if I'm riding a certain position and you're really uncomfortable, then it's not working. So I think there are no right or wrong answers with this. Just experiment, whether it is getting on the turbo and turning them completely upside down, if you can do that. Someone said to me the other day on Twitter, I think, that they'd actually just stacked up loads of towels, for example, on their handlebars to give them the right sort of height, and I quite liked that because I like a makeshift solution. So again, if it works for you, it works for you. Take the pressure off. You do not have to do anything on the bike. I think for me, I wanted to ride and I wanted to continue to ride because it's made me feel good. But if you have a day where you're fatigued, you're tired, you're not recovered, you don't want to be doing it, you're uncomfortable, there is no shame in climbing off the bike. And I think, again, what the expert said to me was, you don't want to be putting that pressure on to be improving any sort of performance or worrying about your power data. There's absolutely no quota for what you need to do or not do, but just do something that makes you feel good. The biggest thing that will probably hold you back is needing to wee. I did a Zwift Fundo and my only thing was, am I going to be able to get through this without going to the toilet every 10 minutes? And I found varying times when I had to get on and off and pause things. But actually, sometimes I made it through the sessions and sometimes I didn't. But the one thing to make sure you don't do, of course, is scrimp on drinking and dehydrate yourself to not have to stop or get off or find a spot for a comfort break. So, of course, it's really important to, again, listen to your body and make sure that you stay hydrated, even if it does mean climbing off the turbo every 5 minutes. One thing that I found really joyful in this pregnancy is, I think for me as a journalist in the world of cycling, I've so often over the years assessed my appearance on the bike. Do I look like a bike rider? Do I have the build of somebody that qualifies to talk about cycling and bike racing? And it's been a little bit of a minefield at times. And I think for the first time in my life, truly, I've got on the bike and thought, you know what? I'm so grateful for what my body can do. I'm just so grateful to still be able to ride a bike and this heavily pregnant. And it's meant that I'm not thinking, oh, have I got a little bit of a fat roll here? Do I look like a bike rider? Because essentially what my body's allowing me to do through pregnancy is just phenomenal. There are no stupid questions. There really aren't. However, I tried to come up with some that I think were pretty stupid and I put them to GP Dr. Ralph Mitchell. Let's take a look. Is the baby drinking all my drinks? Do I need to be upping that when I'm riding?
No, not necessarily. I mean, baby can't drink specifically off you. It's probably you're just losing a bit more sweat. You've got a bigger blood volume circulating around your body as well. So it's just normal, simple advice. The slightly warmer weather, it is important to drink as much as you can. As you get in later stages, your blood pressure tends to drop a little bit as well, so women can feel lightheaded. So drinking enough fluids at that particular time will help keeps your blood pressure up as well.
Can you harm your unborn child by doing things like gravel biking and mountain biking and whacking down hills? I'm not talking about coming off. I think that's something separate. But I was, going down rocky bits on bikes, and I was thinking, am I shaking the baby around in there? Am I going to squash the baby if I'm sat limp forward? Should we be thinking about things in positional senses early on?
Probably not so much. I mean, again, sort of mild bumping up and down is probably no different to, I don't know, driving your car or going for a run or something like that. But again, that's the conversation that any woman should have with their midwife, who knows their particular pregnancy really, really well. Again, you wouldn't want to do too much. For example, if you had that condition, like I mentioned, like an incompetent cervix, or other sort of problems with the baby or the sac around the baby.
Well, there you have it. I really, really hope all these things that I've been concerned about throughout my pregnancy at different phases and all the questions that have cropped up for me, I really hope that's gone some way to answering your questions at home. If you like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps. And I'm going to be documenting this journey for as long as I can, and see how long it takes me to get back on the bike at the other end of it all. But again, with no pressure to try and do that too quickly, as I think that might not be the best idea. But either way, I'll see you very soon. Bye bye for now.